All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Couch Warrior podcast. As always, I'm your host, Mike, and today we're going to be breaking down UFC 290. So this video is a little late. Almost always, I go live on Tuesdays unless there's a reason. Yesterday was 4th of July, and I've just had a lot on my plate, so I wasn't able to do a video yesterday. I'm going to put it out today, and probably right after I tape this. So we're going to do it right now, and then later tonight, I'm going live. It's Wednesday, by the way, if you're watching this later on. I'm going live at 10:30 p.m. Eastern time with my guy, Patrick from Addicted to Combat. We co-host a show called The Panel. We do it for every pay-per-view, and we're going to be doing it tonight with 3 really dope guests. So make sure to tune into that one. Going to be a lot of fun. And let's hop right into this card. We got 14 fights, 2 title fights. I really like the card. I know there's a lot of matchups with short notice replacements who may or may not deserve to be in the UFC, but I still think it's going to be a lot of fun matchups. I think that even those people might put up good fights in certain of the matchups, and it's just cool to see a lot of these names. I think there's a lot of people that a lot of us wanted to see fight again, and we're going to get that on this card. So without further ado, let's hop right in. Excuse me on that. So for our first fight here, we've got Kamuela Kirk versus Esteban Ribovics. Kirk 11-5-0. He's 29 years old, 5'10" with a 75-inch reach. Ribovics on the other side, he's 11-1-0, 27. He's 2 years younger, same height, but he is giving up 6 inches in reach here. I do know that Kirk is coming up to lightweight. He's normally fighting at featherweight, but he certainly has the frame here to fight at lightweight, and he's got the reach advantage. So I don't think size is really going to be a factor here. As for this fight, so I like Kirk. He's a very popular underdog this week, and I understand why. The line is super close now. Kirk is plus 125, Ribovics minus 145. It's about right. I think it's about right. I played Kirk at plus 135, and I'll explain why now. So on the Ribovics side, we've got a guy off the Contender Series who came in, and then he fought Yoic Radzhabov. I believe Yoic was the one who was on short notice for that fight. He ended up losing because he got completely out-wrestled. But it's okay because Yoic is a really good wrestler, a very solid wrestler. I know he just lost to Mateusz Rebecki, but Rebecki's another stud. So I wouldn't discount the wrestling of Yoic because of that fight. So the fact that Ribovics got out-controlled like that kind of makes sense. Now, on his Contender Series bout, he knocked out this guy. I believe it's Thomas Paul is the name. Let me check. Yeah, Thomas Paul. Thomas Paul had the funniest Tapology picture. It was him with these really funny circular glasses. But knocked him out. Ribovics has a lot of power. He's a great striker. Takedown defense needs work. Even outside the Yoic fight, he's been taken down before. He scrambles pretty well. He's active off his back. And he's got decent jiu-jitsu. So he's not a fish out of water on the ground, but it's definitely not his wheelhouse. On the feet, pretty good output, nice combinations, technical striking. He's good. Now, on the Kirk side, Kirk's striking, it's also pretty solid. I would rate Ribovics maybe a little bit higher, but Kirk uses his length well. He's got a good jab. His combinations are solid. When he's putting together the combos, he throws them nice and straight. He's not really looping strikes, so he could use that range, and I do think he's going to. In terms of his grappling, right? His jiu-jitsu is fantastic. He's a black belt, and it definitely shows. He's got a bunch of sub wins. And if you look at the Makwan Americani fight, I mean, he was throwing up crazy submissions. The transitions were slick. The only thing with him is he's not really shooting takedowns, at least recently. But going back into his tape in the regionals, he does wrestle. In the Quarantillo fight, he did wrestle. So his wrestling is pretty solid. So I do think he could get Ribovics down. And I think on the ground, he's got a massive advantage here. And I do think he's live to submit Ribovics. Maybe he won't, but I think it's going to be enough to win minutes if he doesn't get that sub. So because I think Kirk is about even in the striking, maybe slight disadvantage in the striking, but I think he also has a grappling edge, I've got to go with the underdog here. And I put a unit on Kirk at plus 135. Now that we're at plus 125, I know it seems like there's no difference, but in terms of probability, there is a difference here. Let's do it right now live, right? So really important to look at this stuff, guys. Plus 135 is what I got. That gives Kirk a chance of 42% to win, right? Now, if you do plus 125, 44%. Again, seems minuscule, but every number counts. And in the long run, you're going to be more profitable and lose more if you're getting the better lines and avoiding ones that maybe don't have as much value anymore. I guess plus 125 is still pretty solid here, but I wouldn't go much further than that. So I like Kirk. Think he out grapples Ribovics, but it's going to be a close fight, a good fight. And on the feet, Ribovics is very dangerous. So we'll move on. Excuse me. So this next fight up, we've got Shannon Ross versus Jesus Aguilar. Ross, 13-7-0. He's 34 years old, 5'6" with a 66-inch reach. On the other side, you've got Aguilar, 8-2-0, 27 years old. He's 5'4". He's 2 inches shorter, 62-inch reach. He's giving up 4 inches in reach. And look, I like Aguilar a lot here. I actually thought that I was going to pass on this fight because I don't really rate either guy that highly. And I don't think either guy really has too much of a future in the UFC. But I mean, the money has been coming in on Shannon Ross. Everybody's been loving Shannon Ross as this underdog. And look, personally, I don't get it. I said this when he was fighting Cleetson Rodriguez, and I was yelling to everybody, Cleetson is going to smoke him. Shannon Ross is not very good. And people didn't believe me. Cleetson was a huge favorite, but nobody wanted to touch it. I touched it because I knew that he was going to win that fight. I was very, very confident in that, and I was correct. I do think I have a good read on Shannon Ross. His striking is all right. Nothing to write home about. Very hittable guy. And he doesn't have much grappling. He's not really wrestling. His takedown defense isn't great. There's just nothing really, no redeeming qualities about him. I don't really understand why anyone would even want to put their money on him. At some point, he was like plus 200, plus 250. Then I understand that's way too wide, and he does have a chance. But I think Aguilar is going to beat this dude more times than he doesn't. In terms of the striking, maybe Shannon Ross is a bit more technical because Aguilar does kind of loop a lot. But I would say his striking is still pretty decent. He'll go to the body sometimes. He's got good power, and he does put together pretty decent combinations. It's just the looping that bothers me, but I don't think it's going to be a huge problem here because Shannon Ross isn't some kind of technical sniper where he's going to be able to take advantage of that and knock out Aguilar. I don't really think that's going to happen. I think Aguilar has a really significant grappling edge. He does wrestle. It's not just guillotines. I know everybody's calling him a guillotine merchant. It is his favorite move, and I don't love that he does that, but I don't really think he's going to be doing it much here because I don't expect Shannon Ross to shoot at all. And if he's not shooting, Aguilar's probably not going to have too many opportunities for a guillotine unless he decides to pull a Brundage, and every time he has any kind of chance, he just goes for it. That would be terrible. I don't think he will, and I think using his grappling, he's going to beat Shannon Ross, maybe submit him. And I wouldn't be shocked if he knocked him out either. He's got great power. Shannon Ross, not the best chin on the planet. And I do think that he's going to get finished here. So I've got 3 units on Aguilar at around minus 140. And then I've got the under 2.5 at minus 150 for 1 unit as well. I don't know how I feel about that under 2.5 bet anymore. I don't know how confident I am because most of the finishing equity, in my opinion, is Aguilar. I don't really see Shannon Ross finishing him. So maybe it would have made more sense to just play Aguilar ITD. But because I have 3 units on him, not going to do anything more there. And I'm going to keep my under because I do think we're going to get a lot of violence in this fight. And I do think Aguilar probably finishes him. So those are my bets for this fight, and we're going to move on. Next up, we've got Cameron Saaiman versus Terrence Mitchell. Mitchell making a short notice debut. Saaiman was supposed to fight Christian Rodriguez, and I was going to put so much money on Christian Rodriguez. But unfortunately, we don't have it here. So Cameron Saaiman, 8-0, undefeated. He's 22 years old, 5'8" with the 67-inch reach. On the other side, you got Terrence Mitchell. He's 15-2-0, 33. He's 11 years older, 2 inches taller, and he does have a 73-inch reach. I know it's not on Tapology, but I was able to get it. So he's going to have a 6-inch reach advantage here. Now, Terrence Mitchell, he was on The Ultimate Fighter years ago. And he got knocked out by Kai Kara-France really quickly. And then since then, he's been only on the Alaska regional scene. And yeah, he's getting a lot of success there. He's beating these dudes. But what do we know about the Alaska regional scene? It's one of the worst regional scenes on the planet. The guys there just aren't very good. The guys coming out of there just aren't very good. And I don't really see that changing right now. The opposition Mitchell has fought has all been terrible in Alaska FC. So it's hard to really understand how good he is, right? Or how much he might have improved since that Kai Kara-France fight on The Ultimate Fighter. So the thing with Saaiman is he's a really good striker. He's a fantastic striker. He's only 22 years old, rapidly improving. Sorry. And he's definitely going to have a striking edge here. From what I've seen, Terrence Mitchell, he's got decent combinations. He uses that length pretty well. He keeps it straight, but not too clean of a striker. Could he land something big? Maybe, but I don't think that's how he wins this fight if he wins. He's very hittable, though. That showed in the Kai Kara France fight, and that hasn't really changed on the regional scene in Alaska. He's still been very hittable. And I do think Cameron Saaiman is going to have a lot of success on the feet and will probably knock him out. So I do have Cameron Saaiman by knockout plus 100. I put a half unit on it. I think at some point here, he's going to knock out Mitchell. Now, I want to talk about the grappling. And I will say, because of this, you really shouldn't parlay Saaiman. I know it seems like this is a layup. Terrence Mitchell coming in on really short notice, fighting these Alaska scene guys. So I think people are just piling Saaiman into their parlays. But the thing with Saaiman is his takedown defense, right? It's just not that good. In the Mana Martinez fight, that was never a risk. Mana doesn't wrestle. Before that, he fought Steven Kozlow, who was 6-0 going into that fight. And Kozlow's got pretty good grappling. And he found a good amount of success wrestling Saaiman. He put in some subs, didn't get them. Obviously, he lost, but his ground control and his work on the ground and his takedowns, it was all working against Saaiman. And you can say, okay, Kozlow's good, better than Mitchell probably. That's okay. Okay, that's okay. But then let's go back to this fight. Sindel Menengela. This fight happened right before the Contender Series for Saaiman. Now, this is a year ago, so he was 21. But I was able to watch the full fight. Right now, if you use like Tape Index or whatever, they just give you the highlights because that's all that's available for free. But I'm a psycho. And when he was fighting on the Contender Series, I really wanted to know just how good he was. So I actually bought a membership just to watch that fight. And look, he lost a lot of rounds. I think he lost 2 or 3 rounds. Well, not 3. He lost like two of the first rounds via grappling. He got out wrestled, got out controlled. And Menengela is not that good. And you can see by the record, he was 8-7-0 at the time. This was a 5-rounder. So Saaiman was able to pick it up at the end and get that victory. But the grappling was definitely a problem. So Terrence Mitchell, if he does anything well, it's wrestling. He's actually a pretty good wrestler from what I've seen. His wrestling is good. The only reason I'm not betting him, even though I think he kind of has a path here with his wrestling, is that I don't really see him submitting Saaiman. He's getting these subs, right? He's got a bunch of them on his record. But against bad competition, right? And also, like, it would be a different story if it was against bad competition, but it was like very clean and just done very well. Then okay, because you fight who's given to you. But I think it was his most recent fight. He put in a rear naked with no hooks at all. Or it was his second most recent fight. I don't remember off the top of my head, but he put in no hooks and just went for a really sloppy rear naked. He did get it, but again, against bad competition. So I don't really see him submitting Saaiman, but I think that he might have a good amount of wrestling success, especially early, because Saaiman does start slow and he tends to pick it up as the fight goes on. And then he's a bit more dangerous later on in the fight. Because of that, like I said, I really wouldn't parlay Cameron Saaiman. I really wouldn't hammer his money line or anything like that. I wouldn't max bet him. He's got a way to lose here. Terrence Mitchell, if he wrestles, if he uses that length, that strength, that physicality, he very well might be able to pull something off here as a huge underdog. I don't think it's the most likely outcome. I think the most likely outcome is a knockout from Cameron Saaiman, and that's what I went with for a half unit. But I'm keeping it small because you have to recognize holes in the game of these big favorites and recognize that not everyone making their short notice debut is bad. So Terrence Mitchell, I don't think he's very good. Don't think he's going far. But again, he does have a path for the upset. The pick is Cameron Saaiman, but I just want to give you guys everything so you can make an informed decision. We're going to move on, though. Next up, we've got Vitor Petrino versus Marcin Prachnio. Petrino, 8-0, undefeated as a pro. He's 25 years old, 6'2" with a 77-inch reach. On the other side, you got Prachnio, 16, 6-0. He's 34. He's going to be 9 years older. 6'3". He's 1 inch taller, but giving up 3 inches in reach. So Petrino, I had a lot of doubts about him personally because I felt that his cardio wasn't very good. I felt that he was this power puncher who was going to slow down big time and be able to get finished later on in fights. But so far, he's been proving me relatively wrong. I mean, in the Turkaj fight, he did slow down a little bit, but he was getting takedowns and there was a lot of grappling there, which isn't usually his wheelhouse. And he was able to keep it together. So I'm not really having as many cardio doubts. He does still slow down, so he could be taken advantage of there. I just don't know if this is going to be the fight where that happens. His wrestling surprised me. Didn't expect it to be very good, but it's actually very solid. Good wrestling, good ground control, good work from top. Now, the Prachnio side, his last fight was that William Knight fight where William Knight threw like 10 strikes the entire fight. It was an absolute mess. And Prachnio looked pretty good. Probably should have gotten a finish there, but Willie could be very tough to finish even when he's fighting terribly. So I'm not going to take too much from him there. And then before that, the Felipe Lins fight. That was a pretty good fight. He did pretty well for himself. It was close, but he got out grappled. And I think that's what did it for Felipe Lins and what got him the dub. And I think that Petrino, if for some reason he's not succeeding on the feet, where I do think he is going to succeed on the feet, but if he's not, he will have that wrestling path open and he very well might use it. And if he does, he might find a lot of success there and be able to win a good amount of minutes. On the feet, I also think he's really live to knock out Prachnio. I mean, he hits like a damn train. He can get very wild and overswing. He does that a lot. But for the most part, his striking is actually pretty solid. And along with that power, it makes him extremely dangerous on the feet. Prachnio, we know he started his UFC run terribly. Got knocked out by Sam Alvey in the first round. Got knocked out by Mike Slow Rodriguez in the first round. And he got knocked out by, who's the third one? I don't remember off the top of my head. There was one more in that mix, but I don't remember. And then since then, I believe the next fight was Ike Villanueva. Yeah, and Khalil Roundtree. Roundtree looked really bad in that fight. It's a good win for Prachnio. No, everybody counted him out, but I don't know how much to take from that. His output is good, right? And if Petrino does slow down, Prachnio could very much pick up the fight and end up winning maybe late in, like winning the second round through like, I don't know, winning like the last 2.5 minutes and then win the third round because Petrino is gassed. I don't want to bet Prachnio, even though he's a very sizable dog. What is he? He's plus 250. I think that line's a little bit off because I do think he's live. I do think that if Petrino doesn't knock him out and if he's slowing down, Prachnio could really pick this up because he does have good striking and his output is pretty solid too. And his cardio has seemed pretty good. It's just that chin. And I don't know if I can trust that chin. And I'll be pretty sick if I lay any kind of money on that plus 250 and then he gets knocked the hell out because that's what I kind of think is going to happen here. So Petrino is going to remain the pick. I'm not going to play Prachnio, although I do think he has a bit of a way to win this. I just don't know if it's going to make it that far. I think Petrino might knock him out pretty early. What are the totals? Let's look at the totals. So the line's set at 1.5. I'd be kind of interested in the over, but again, I really think Petrino is just going to knock him out clean. So I'm going to stay with Petrino, but no bets. Nothing is really playable. His knockout prop, what is it? Minus 160. I don't think that's playable because he might end up wrestling. He might end up wrestling like he did in the Turkaj fight and end up winning that way with a decision. So I just wouldn't touch anything here personally. If you wanted to parlay him, maybe, but it's hard to want to parlay a minus 300 when you know he could have cardio issues. So personally, I would stay off of any betting side here, but Petrino is going to be my pick. All right. Next up, we've got Edgar Chairez versus Tatsuro Taira. Chairez 10-4-0. He's 27 years old, 5'7" with a 72-inch reach. Entram Gym is where he's training from. We've got a bunch of people from Entram on this card. Taira 13-0, undefeated. 23, he's 4 years younger. Same height, giving up 2 inches in reach. Paraisha Okinawa is what I got for him. Don't know where he trains really. I believe he moves around a lot. So, look, Taira is a huge, huge favorite. He's minus 1,100. Come back on Chairez is plus 725. That's a crazy line. So, Chairez, he's a pretty good striker. His combinations are good. His output is good. He fought in the Contender Series, 3 fights back against Clayton Carpenter, a decent prospect. Maybe not the best in the world, but I think Carpenter is pretty good. And it was a close fight. He made it a very close fight. He was a big underdog in that fight too, not plus 750, but he was a big underdog. And Carpenter did win with the grappling. That helped him win. He wasn't doing too great on the feet against Chairez. And because of that, I understand why people think Chairez is going to lose here, because Taira, his grappling is very, very good. Probably up there in the best of the division. His jiu-jitsu is really good. His transitions on the ground for submissions are really slick. He's a tough customer, and he's only 23 years old as well. He's going to be rapidly improving, and we've already been seeing that in front of our own eyes. His striking is pretty solid. Not his best aspect, and I actually do think that Chairez is going to be a better striker. And on the feet, it's going to be Chairez finding the better shots and landing more. But again, I think that grappling is going to be a big thing for Taira. And as usual, I think he's going to use it quickly and successfully. If he doesn't, I'm not going to lie, Chairez could be live to knock him out. We've seen Taira hurt before, even against CJ Vergara. Vergara was landing a lot of good shots, and he did hurt Taira. So I wouldn't be completely shocked if on the feet Chairez was hurting the guy, because Chairez, I'm telling you guys, he's a pretty good striker. But again, that grappling, I do think it's going to work for Taira. So that's why I think Taira wins. And do I think he submits Chairez? Look, he can probably submit almost anybody in the division. His jiu-jitsu is fantastic. But Chairez, his jiu-jitsu is also pretty good. The takedown defense maybe isn't that great, so he's going to be on his back quite a bit. But if you look at his last fight, I mean, the transitions on the ground before he got that sub were very, very good. And I think it's possible that he defends a lot of subs. We saw in the Candelario fight, if you've got good BJJ defense, if you can use it defensively well, then Taira might not be able to finish you. So that's why I'm not running to the window to pay minus 200 on Taira by submission. I don't think that's worth it, because it wouldn't be incredibly shocking if he won a decision instead. The way I'm going to tackle this fight, I think, is I'll be looking for fight starts round 2. I don't know what the odds are going to be on that just yet, but DraftKings will probably drop that today or tomorrow. So I'll be looking out for it. And if I bet it, as usual, it'll be on my Twitter at Couch Warrior Pod, as you guys see up there. And I want to play that because, first of all, Taira starts slow, right? Almost always he starts slow. Against Aguilar, you don't have that option. Aguilar will bring the fight to you. I forgot to mention this when I was breaking down Aguilar. One of my favorite aspects about him is he's an absolute dog, and he's going to fight for your money from the first bell to the last bell. And I just think that Taira normally starts slow, and I think that even when he does take down Chairez early, I don't think that Chairez is going to get submitted early. I think it's going to take some time. I think it's going to take some work from Taira. And I don't think this is going to be an extremely easy fight for him. I think it's actually a decent challenge and probably the best they could put together on short notice. I think Chairez is a pretty good person to throw in there with Taira and see how Taira is on the feet maybe a little bit. So give me Tatsuro Taira to win, probably by sub late, maybe round 3. But even the props on that aren't any good. So the only thing I'll be looking out for is the fight starts round 2 prop. And we can move on to our next fight. All right, here we have a rematch that literally nobody asked for. Nobody wanted this rematch. They made it happen anyways. We've got Jimmy Crute versus Alonzo Menifield. Crute 12-3-1. That one being the draw with Menifield. 27 years old. He's 6'2" with a 74-inch reach. On the other side with Menifield, he's 13-3-1. 35. He's going to be, let me do some math, 8 years older. Yes, 8 years older. 2 inches shorter, and he's got a 2-inch reach advantage. So what did we see in the first fight? We saw that, first of all, Jimmy Crute very much so does have a wrestling advantage here. We kind of already knew that going into the last fight. He's got really good wrestling, and his jiu-jitsu is extremely good. For the wrestling, I mean, look at the Anthony Smith fight, right? Smith destroying him on the feet. He injures his leg, and only then, because I'll talk about the fight IQ, only then did he decide to wrestle with one leg and found a tremendous amount of success, right? So his wrestling is really good. But I just mentioned it. The problem with him is the fight IQ. His striking's okay, but he keeps standing there with guys who can destroy him on the feet, who could really hurt him. And it hasn't been doing well for him. It's a bad strategy. And he keeps doing it over and over again. The fight IQ, something there is just missing. And I've learned my lesson. I've learned my lesson from betting on Brundage that if I see someone with bad fight IQ, I'm not backing them no more. I'm done with that, because there's nothing more aggravating than having the better fighter and watching that better fighter make mistakes and end up losing. I do think he's better than Menifield. I think he's got a higher ceiling than Menifield. He's still young. He's 27. Menifield's already 35. We're probably seeing the finished product. But his takedown defense is pretty good. And it did hold up to a decent extent in the Jimmy Crute fight, the first one. So would I be incredibly shocked if it was even better this time now that he kind of knows Crute's timing, kind of knows how he grapples? He could look really great if he can just keep this on the feet, because on the feet, Crute's going to have a really hard time with him. He didn't find much success on the feet in the last fight, and Menifield was able to hurt him a lot, almost got him out of there in the second round, and I wouldn't be completely shocked if he knocked him out here. So while I think Jimmy Crute is the side and has an extremely clear path here by just wrestling the whole time and grappling and looking for a submission, I can't trust him to do it. If he was maybe a big underdog, I would take the shot, but at a line this close with Crute as like the minus 125 favorite, I'm going to stay off just because I can't trust a guy with bad fight IQ. He should win, but if he doesn't wrestle, he'll probably lose. So I'm going to pick Crute, but the only play I have, so I played his under, their under, and I had it parlayed with the Bo Nickel under for the original Nickel Gore fight. Now that fight got canceled, I just have one unit on Crute Menifield under 2.5 at minus 240. Not something I would have ever played straight, just because minus 240, I don't want to lay enough to win one unit, and just putting one on it, didn't really want to do that. But now I have no choice, can't cash it out. So I like the under. I do think one of them is going to get a finish this time, whether it's Crute getting a submission or Menifield knocking him out. I do think one of them will get it this time. Crute will be my pick, but again, I'm not betting on bad fight IQ anymore. I'm over it. That Brundage fight scarred me for life, and we're going to move on. All right. Next up, we've got another big favorite. We have Yazmin Jauregui versus Denise Gomes. Jauregui 10-0, undefeated as a pro. 24 years old. She's 5'3" with a 64-inch reach. She does also train at Entrim. On the other side, Gomes 7-2-0. She's 1 year younger at 23. 1 inch shorter with a 1 inch reach disadvantage, training out of PRVT. So look, I played Gomes pretty much as soon as the line opened, maybe shortly after. I got plus 375 on her for half unit. She's now plus 310, plus 320. I'm seeing money still coming in on Jauregui again. I think that's still playable. So look, Jauregui is a really hot prospect, and I got a lot of hate for that pick because of that. The thing is, she's still a relatively unknown for us. Like, I don't think she's proven anything yet where she should be a minus 400 favorite against most people, especially not against another young fighter, another decent prospect, and Denise Gomes. Out of the two, who's a better prospect? Definitely Jauregui. But I think both have decent ceilings. Jauregui's is higher, but I think Gomes is also pretty good and is going to get better. And she's only 23, so she's also going to be improving rapidly. Now, watching Jauregui, right? She's a very slick striker. In the Nunes fight, knocked out Nunes. She did get knocked down herself. But for me, I rate Nunes higher than most people. I think Nunes is actually a very solid striker. She's another fighter with bad fight IQ who you can't really trust. And Jauregui was able to clean up shop against her. In Jauregui's debut against Yazmin Lucindo, another really young fighter, she won, but she got hit a lot. And Lucindo's mostly a grappler. She's not the best striker on the planet. And getting hit that much by Lucindo, to me, wasn't a great look. And I think that Gomes and Lucindo actually are very similar and present similar dangers here. And both of them, what do they do really well? They make it a fight. They make it dirty. They don't let it be clean. And that's why I think Gomes is a really good shot, because she's not going to give Jauregui space to just pick her apart. She's going to be pushing forward. She's going to be pushing her against the clinch. She's going to try against the fence. She's going to be clinching her up. She's going to be trying to take her down. Do I think Jauregui's the rightful favorite? Yes. But I do think that Denise Gomes can pull the upset here by making the fight sloppy, dirty, grindy. And at plus 300, plus 375, I think that line is way off. I give her a better shot than that to win the fight. I would have lined the fight somewhere with like Jauregui being minus 240. Probably the max I would have done with Jauregui. I think that's an accurate line, but I think this line is way off. So while I do think Jauregui's got the tools to win this fight and should win this fight, I had to take a shot on the upset because I think it's going to happen more often than the line indicates. So I put a half unit down on Gomes at plus 375, and I think she can pull this off. So That's going to be my play. I guess for my pick, I'll still pick Jauregui just because I do think she's the better fighter. But again, my pick and my bets aren't always going to be the same, because if I think the line is off, I'm going to go with the underdog. So here I'm going with the dog, but my pick will be Jauregui just because I think she's a slicker striker. But I'm betting against her because I think Gomes, again, could win this by just grinding her out against the fence, making it dirty, not giving her the kind of fight that she wants. So a half unit on Gomes, and we're going to move on. We've got another short notice debut here. We've got Della Maddalena versus Josiah Harrell. Maddalena, 14-2-0, 26 years old. He's 5'11" with a 73-inch reach. He was originally supposed to fight Sean Brady. On the other side, Harrell, 7-0, undefeated, 24. He's 2 years younger. He's 5'7", so he's giving up 4 inches in reach, and he's got a 67-inch reach, so he's giving up 6 inches in reach. And he's coming up from lightweight, and I think that's half of the problem here. The other half of the problem is that Della Maddalena is really, really good. I think he's a great prospect. I do think he's a little bit overhyped, and I do think at some point he's going to lose, maybe some point soon if he starts getting better competition. I thought he was going to win the Brady fight because I do think that his takedown defense is really good, and I do think that he'd be able to survive Brady on the ground and definitely outstrike him because Brady's not a good striker. And I feel that there's a similar dynamic here because Harrell, he's all right on the feet. He's got decent power, but I don't think he's that great of a striker. He's just okay. And he can wrestle. His own wrestling is decent. He'll probably shoot takedowns here. I don't think he's going to get it. He's too small. I don't think he's physical enough. And I think that Jack has just shown good takedown defense against bigger fighters. So I find it hard to see how Harrell is going to find a tremendous amount of success here. The line is crazy. Della's like minus, what is he? Minus 900 on Bet Online. I'm seeing minus 1,000 on other books. It's a really wide line, but I think some of the dogs we talked about earlier, like Chairez, I think they have a better shot at winning than even Terrence Mitchell. I think they have a better shot at winning than Josiah Harrell. I just don't see what he's going to do here against Jack. I think Jack's probably going to knock him the hell out, but none of it is playable. Jack ITD is minus 400, minus 450. Jack by knockout is minus 285. You can't do anything here. You really can't. Unless you wanted to go like on the other side and play Harrell by knockout. It's plus 1,600. Other books will probably open it even crazier. But realistically, it's going to take a real Hail Mary and a really lucky shot because I think Jack's got this guy covered everywhere, including the measurables. So not going to really beat a dead horse. We can move on. All right, next up, we've got Robbie Lawler versus Nico Price. Lawler, 29, 16-0. He's 41 years old now, 5'11" with a 74-inch reach, training out of Sanford MMA, Killcliff FC. Nico Price, 15, 6-0. He's going to be, got to do math again, 8 years old, 8 years younger. He's going to be 1 inch taller and have a 2-inch reach advantage. Don't know where he trains. So look, the problem with Lawler is he's 41. And the other problem with Lawler is that he just said he's going to retire after this fight. And if not for that, I probably would have a bet on him. Nico Price, I know he's younger, but he's also definitely on the downside of his career. He hasn't looked as great anymore. Even in the Donald Cerrone fight, I believe it was a draw. Not a great look. The Michel Pereira fight, Michel Pereira is good, and it was a decent fight. The Alex Oliveira fight, relatively close. Nico Price pulled that off. And then the Philip Rowe fight, he was out striking Rowe for the most part, and then he got knocked out. I don't think that Lawler presents a similar knockout threat, so I don't think he's going to knock out Nico Price. Phil Rowe, while he's not the best person on the world in terms of fighting, he's big and has really, really serious power. So I don't think Robbie Lawler can replicate that and knock out Nico Price. But if not for his retirement, I would bet him because Nico Price is hittable as hell. He's very hittable. And Robbie Lawler, even at this age, even at this point in his career, his striking is still there. I really liked watching his striking in the Brian Barberena fight. I know he got finished, but he was going to the body. He was mixing up really well. He had good pressure. His combinations were still there. The striking still seems to be there. And it's not like he's got a dead chin. He's not getting knocked out too much. The Brian Barberena fight, you could say it's not great because Barberena doesn't have the best power, but Barberena is an output fighter, a pressure fighter, and he was able to break Robbie Lawler. Nico Price at some point used to be like that too. And he still does have that output. He's definitely going to bring it to Lawler. And that's one of the reasons I still want to bet Lawler also, is that if he does get overwhelmed by output here, Nico Price could maybe put him away. But I think the line is off, man. I think the line is pretty off. Plus 220 Lawler. I think he's relatively live. He opened up at plus 135, and I think that's probably a little bit closer. I think it should still be wider than that, but not plus 220 on Robbie Lawler. I think he's live, but I'm not putting my money on a retirement fight. I'm not doing that. Learned my lesson there as well. So I'm going to stay off of it. But I do think that Robbie Lawler is very live. And yeah, I'm going to pick for my official pick. How do we want to do this? I guess I'll pick Nico Price because everything to me points to him, because the output is a little bit fresher and he's not the one retiring, and he's also not the one who's 41. So I got to go with Nico Price. I do think Lawler's a really live dog, and I'd be on him if not for that retirement. But I'll be picking Nico Price to win here. And we'll move on. All right. Next up, we've got Bo Nickel versus Valentine Woodburn. 4-0 for Nickel, undefeated as a pro. He's 27 years old, 6'1", with a 76-inch reach, and American top team for him. Woodburn, 7-0. He's undefeated as well. 29. He's 2 years older. 5'8". He's going to be, what is that? 5 inches shorter? 4'12". 5 inches shorter, I believe. And I don't have his reach. Training out of Extreme Couture, not Fusion Excel. Chris Curtis was talking about him a little bit. And while I'm not taking much stock into what Curtis said, because he's literally just his teammate, he did have one good point. He said Woodburn, because of his size and how the dude is ripped. He's huge. He's like a walking, talking refrigerator. He's very hard to get under. Guys who are short, it can be difficult to get those takedowns on them because they're so short and stocky that their center of gravity, balance, whatever. I'm not a science person. It's difficult to deal with for a wrestler. Now, a wrestler of the caliber of Nickel is probably going to get those takedowns. You know, Chris Curtis not getting takedowns at practice is very different from Bo Nickel not getting takedowns. Nickel's going to get takedowns. But look, I mean, I think this is actually a more dangerous fight than Gore. I know Gore is the UFC caliber, but I thought that was very, very easy for Nickel. Here, with this guy who's shorter, stockier, and who carries a ton of power, it's a bit more of a dangerous fight. I still think Nickel's going to destroy him. Don't get me wrong. Probably going to submit him in the first round. But I think that Woodburn, he's going to be a bitch here. He's going to make it hard for Nickel. And you know what? I don't want to bet first round sub just because it seems difficult to submit someone like Woodburn because of his body shape. It might be a little hard. So, and I also think the line is going to be dead on arrival. I don't think it's going to be bettable. They're probably going to have the sub at like minus 250, 300. They're probably going to do round one sub at like minus 175, minus 200. It's going to be something crazy and unplayable. I am going to consider Woodburn by knockout only for 1/10 of a unit. And I'm waiting to see what I get. If I get something like plus 2,000, plus 2,500, I'm going to put 1/10 of a unit. That way, if I'm right and Bo Nickel's just going to destroy him, it's okay. I lost 1/10 of a unit. But if I'm also right that there's a shot here that Woodburn can catch him, then I cash and win 2.5 units, 2 units, depending on what the line's going to be. Not going to play it at anything under that because I think his chances of a knockout here are very, very little. But dude's tough. He's a tough dude, and it's going to be fun to watch Nickel deal with him. So I do think Nickel runs through him. Nickel is my obvious play, but I'm going to go a little contrarian and probably take a stab on the knockout for Valentine Woodburn in case he pulls off something crazy. But other than that, I'm not going to touch much on that fight. Next up, we've got Dan Hooker versus Jalen Turner. This is an awesome fight. Hooker, 22, 12-0, 33 years old. He's 6 feet tall at the 75.5-inch reach. On the other side, you got Turner. He's 13, 6-0, 5 years younger at 28. He's going to be 3 inches taller. Says it's the same reach here, but I'm pretty sure that's wrong. Let me check UFC stats. So UFC stats has 77-inch reach for Turner, 75 for Hooker. That gives Turner a 2-inch reach advantage. So look, One of Turner's best attributes is his size, right? At 155, his size is crazy. He's huge. Finally, he's fighting a guy who's going to be of a similar size. So Hooker, he's going to be live on the feet. And also another thing with Turner is he's very hittable. Even in the fight against, what was his fucking name? The guy who sucks and who's also a terrible person, Brock Weaver. I say he's a terrible person because it was something involving with like dog fighting or something, if I remember off the top of my head. Just not a great guy, and also not a great fighter. And he was landing on Turner, which wasn't a good look. He was landing quite a bit on Turner. So to count out Hooker here, you can't do it. The thing, though, I just think at this point in their careers, Hooker isn't going to be improving much. Turner can still very much improve, and he has been. And I think that at range, he's going to hit harder. His striking is also really good, and I don't really see Hooker knocking him out. So while I think that Hooker is going to land and is going to find some success on the feet, I think it's going to be close. And I think Turner is a bit more live to catch him with something big. He's going to land the more impactful shots, in my opinion. And I just think that he's going to have more success on the feet than Hooker. The big thing, though, I also think that Turner is going to have wrestling here. Hooker, his takedown defense is pretty good, but it's not the best in the world. And if Turner wants to grapple him, I think he can. Now, I saw some people saying if Hooker wants to win, he needs to wrestle. I know he's done it. I know he used it in the Nasrat Haqparast fight, but I don't think he's going to take down Turner. I mean, Turner's takedown defense has been improving very much. And in the Gamrot fight, he showed really solid takedown defense. And Gamrot is a really good grappler. I know people are less high on him now because he lost to Benio, and Benio lost to Charles, and everybody loves their MMA math. I don't think Hooker's going to have a lot of success grappling Turner. His best shot is to keep it on the feet and use the hitability of Turner, the striking defense, the lack thereof against Turner, and land his really nice shots. So I think Turner's going to win this fight. I think the line, what is it now? -260. I think it's about accurate, honestly. I think Turner's going to win this fight more often than not, and he can win it in multiple ways. He can knock out Hooker. He can submit Hooker, win a decision. So I got to take Turner here. The only way I'm playing him, I parlayed him up with someone we're going to talk about very soon for 1 unit, and that's all I'm going to do. Not going to count out Hooker here. Not going to lay 5 units on Turner or anything crazy like that. Just going to stick with that parlay that I'm going to talk about the second leg soon, and we're going to move on. I do think this is Turner's fight to lose. And here's our second leg. So we've got Robert Whittaker versus Dricus du Plessis. Whittaker 24-6-0. He's 32 years old, 6 feet tall with a 73.5-inch reach. On the other side, you got du Plessis, 19-2-0. He's 29. He's 3 years younger, 1 inch taller, and about a 3-inch reach advantage. Look, the thing with du Plessis is we've all seen it, right? The technique isn't quite there. He's not very technical. He throws all kinds of strikes, and he's very unique in his striking, so that could present problems to people. But the flurries, the way he flurries forward, I mean, it's like Juliana Pena against Amanda Nunes. Just runs in there like this. And he was even getting countered by freaking Darren Till. He was getting hurt on the feet by Derek Brunson, not just in the first round, in the second round as well. That was a horrible look. And I had finally bet Dricus there. I usually fade him all the time because I don't think he's that good. And he's just been memeing his way to victory. But that, I mean, I was really sweating that one because I thought Brunson was actually going to put him out. Whittaker for him is a nightmare matchup. I mean, on paper, on tape, everything. He's a nightmare for him. Whittaker, very slick striker, accurate, really nice counters, nice head kicks. I think that might catch du Plessis. I just think that his striking is so solid and his counters are so good that at some point he's going to knock out Dricus. And can Dricus knock him out? It's entirely possible. I'm not going to bet on it, though, because I think Robert can stay safe, and I think he can pull this off and possibly get a finish here. He hasn't gotten a finish in a while. I think he might get it here finally. So I parlayed Whittaker with who did I just talk about? With Jalen Turner. That parlay came out to -132. Put just a unit on it. The only concern I have is I want to see just how legit this whole thing with the nose of Dricus du Plessis is. So in all his UFC fights, he's always done this, right? With his mouth wide open. And his team always said it's not because he's gassed. That's just how he breathes because of his nose. Now, apparently, the nose is fixed. He's not functioning on 7% oxygen like his coach said anymore. And who knows? He might come in here looking like a completely different fighter. But the truth of the matter is, I don't think it's the cardio that's going to hurt him here. So I don't think it matters how many times he fixes his nose or how much oxygen he's going to currently have, because I don't think that's going to change his technique or his style. I think that's only going to change maybe him having more cardio. Whitaker could win this because of the cardio, but I think he's going to win this off of technique, off of being the better guy, off of just, in my opinion, being the much better martial artist. He could wrestle here as well. His wrestling is very solid. And his, like I said, his striking abilities, his counter abilities, I just think that at some point he's going to clip Dricus, knock him out. But if not, I really do think he wins this decision as well. So for me, it's Bobby Knuckles, and we're going to move on. All right. So our co-main event in our first title fight of the night, we've got Brandon Moreno versus Alexandre Pantoja, the third fight. I'm surprised they're calling it the third because one of them was on The Ultimate Fighter, but maybe it's for promotional reasons. So Moreno, 21, 6-2. He's 29 years old, 5'7" with a 70-inch reach, and he's at Entrim. Actually, no, he's not at Entrim anymore. He hasn't been for a long time. I don't know why I said that. He's at where is he? Hold on, we're gonna look it up because he's at an American camp now, and I actually really want to talk about it. So, gonna pull up his Instagram. All right, so the most recent pictures are showing us Las Vegas, Nevada, but not what camp he's at. I'm looking at it now, and I'm not seeing what camp it was in Las Vegas. Can't see the logo behind them. You guys are getting a catch of my process. This is how I look at things. Let me see. Training with Mikey Musini. If you guys don't know him, his jiu-jitsu is insane, which is a good move for this fight. I know he was down in Florida somewhere. Where is he down in Florida? Now I'm not seeing it. Cobrina, BJJ, that was in February. I guess I was mistaken on the Florida thing. I thought I saw that. But all right, enough of that. FTCC is where it seems like he's at, training with Mikey Busimi and some other guys. So we're going to move on from that. And on the other side, we got Pantoja. He's 25, 5-0, 33 years old. He's going to be 4 years older, 2 inches shorter, and he's going to have a 2-inch reach disadvantage. He's still at American Top Team. So look, they last fought in 2018, and obviously a lot has changed since then. At the time, Moreno, so that was 2018. We're in 2023. That was 5 years ago. Moreno was only 24 there. Pantoja was 28. So they were both a lot younger, especially Moreno. And, you know, you can't say that Moreno hasn't improved then. He's improved a lot. But the thing I'm not hearing is Pantoja has also improved since then. Like, it's not like Pantoja's just stayed stagnant since 28 and Moreno's been improving. Like, people are making it out to be like Moreno's the only one able of improvement here, and Pantoja's always going to be the same person. I don't think so. I think both guys still kind of fight like they always have. They're just better. So I wouldn't put too much in that. Brandon Moreno has fought more. He's fought at a higher, I guess, a higher level. He's been fighting for the title. But four of those fights since then have been against the same exact opponent in Divas and Figueroa. And, you know, it's only going to help to some certain extent because Moreno was learning and preparing for Davison. Now he's preparing for someone else. In their 2018 fight, the striking, it went to Pantoja. Moreno throws a little bit more straight, but Pantoja's got more power. His output looked better, and his striking's pretty solid too. He does get a little bit loopy, which I don't love too much, and it could open up a lot of counters for Moreno, but I think his striking is also very solid. Now, the wrestling, that's going to be interesting. Both guys could wrestle. Both guys can get takedowns, and I think it's open to either guy. The jiu-jitsu, I have to give it to Pantoja. Moreno's also got really good jiu-jitsu, very solid. And I mean, we've seen that. He submitted Davison, who I believe is also a black belt, and that was a nice sub. And now he's training with Mikey Buscemi, who is probably a fantastic person to train with if you're preparing for the ground game of Pantoja. Pantoja is so good on the ground, though, man. I mean, his jiu-jitsu is so good. Even in that first round of the Moreno fight, he showed it off. And since then, he showed it off a bunch. Submitted Alex Perez. That was so clean. Royval's got good jiu-jitsu also, and he's also a very good scrambler. And the way Pantoja was able to keep position and just adjust and adjust and adjust, great look. I think that if this does hit the ground, that favors Pantoja. And on the feet, it's hard to tell exactly, but I think Pantoja's still going to find a lot of success. The big thing here is the cardio, right? Moreno at this point is very comfortable going 5 rounds. He's shown that he can do it and that it's not a big problem for him. Pantoja hasn't gone a full 5, and he's slowed down even in the 3-rounders. In the 3rd round, he's usually slower, throwing less, a little bit just he's less good. He's not as good in the 3rd round. So I do have concerns. But just like Moreno's preparing right now for the submission game of Pantoja, I do truly believe that Pantoja's probably working on that cardio. I mean, if he wants to win a title, if he wants to fight in 5-rounders, if he wants to be champion and then defend the belt, he's going to have to pick up that cardio. I think he's going to get there. I think he's also live for early finishes. I wouldn't be shocked if he knocked out Moreno. I wouldn't be shocked if he submitted Moreno. We've seen Moreno knocked down multiple times at this point, and I don't see a reason that Pantoja can't do that. And because I think Pantoja's also got a really big edge on the ground, I had to take the underdog shot because the only thing I'm seeing that really points me to Moreno is his cardio advantage. Maybe on the feet he's a little bit more clean, but I'm not ready to make that for sure. Say for sure Moreno is going to be the better striker because I think it's going to be close on the feet, and I do give the power to Pantoja. So as an underdog, I had to play the guy. I had to take a shot. He's already beaten him twice. I know it was a long time ago, but it definitely helps when you're backing him. He's the underdog. I think he's got the jiu-jitsu edge, and on the feet, he's got the power edge. So I had to take a shot. I took him at plus 140. I thought the line would be coming in on him, but it hasn't been the case. And now you can get plus 163 on him. So plus 160 on some books. So I think that's a great play. I think it's a good spot. I think the line is good. I would have personally lined this, maybe pick him. I think that would be more accurate because I think it's a 50-50 fight. But because it's an underdog on Pantoja, and I think he's super live, I had to take that shot. And he's going to be my pick for the fight as well. And we're going to move on to our main event. All right. So here we've got Alexander Volkanovski versus Yair Rodriguez. Volkanovski, 25-2-0. He's 34 years old, 5'6" with a 72-inch reach, training out of City Kickboxing. On the other side, you've got Yair Rodriguez, 15-3-0. He's going to be 4 years younger at 30. He's 5'11". He's going to be 5 inches taller, and he's got about the same reach. So, look, Volkanovski, in my opinion, is one of the greats. I know people are saying he's not the featherweight GOAT. I think he's close. He's, in my opinion, he's one of the best fighters we've seen in a really long time. The dude is so damn good. He's so intelligent. Earlier, we were talking about bad fight IQ. He's the definition of good fight IQ. The way he fights is so damn smart. Just the Max Holloway fight, the way he was hand fighting, keeping Max from using his best weapons and using that against him. In all of his fights, he knows when to wrestle. He knows when to strike. He knows what he's got to do to pick up the dub in each particular fight. And he prepares, especially for each opponent, right? Going into the Islam Makhachev fight, he talked about it. He said, the only thing I'm focusing right now on is wrestling because I know what I'm dealing with and I'm focusing on my grappling. And you know what? He put up a damn good fight against Islam. I thought Islam won, but when that decision was being read and I had a ticket on Islam, I was sweating, man, because I thought that Volk could have won that fight. So anybody who scored it for him, I don't think they're crazy at all. I think that there's an argument to be made that he did win. I personally think that he did not, but I get the people that are saying. Excuse me for that. But look, Yair, I wanted to count him out. And my gut reaction to this fight was pass. because I think Volkanovski wins, but I don't want to lay that price on him. But look, Yair is a dangerous man. He's a very good striker, very slick, very good counters. The kicks are on point. I normally don't love guys who are kick heavy, but first of all, his kicks are really slick. He's not sloppy with them. He knows how to use them, and could be a really big weapon here. But he's also got hands. He's also got hands. His hands are very solid. I think his striking is very good. Good counters, nice 1-2s down the pipe. Most things are straight coming from him, and he's very creative. We all know that Korean Zombie fight, right? Where Korean Zombie was clearly winning. There was a few seconds left to the fight. If it made to a decision, there was no doubt in anyone's mind that it was the Korean Zombie winning that fight. And then the up elbow. And he knocks him out. That was insane. In the Max Holloway fight, right? When he came back, he was out for a bit. He turned Max Holloway into a D1 wrestler. He made Max not want to strike with him. And that was another time where I had a ticket on Max Holloway, even though he was a tremendous favorite. And I was sweating that decision. I thought maybe he lost. He made Max want to wrestle. Now, that does lead me to another point why I think Volkanovski is going to win and why I'm not betting Yair Rodriguez's money line is that Volkanovski can wrestle. He's a very good wrestler, probably a better wrestler than Max. And I think that if he's uncomfortable here on the feet, he is going to wrestle with Yair. And that path is going to be open to him. Now, can he get submitted by Yair? Yair's got good jiu-jitsu. He got a sub in his last fight against Josh Emmett. I believe it was a triangle. Yep, it was a triangle. But, man, after watching Volk and Ortega and seeing the way that Volk fought out of those submissions, I have a hard time seeing Yair submit him. The thing I do think is possible, I think it's really possible Yair knocks him out. I don't think it's going to happen at a tremendously high clip, but I think it's a pretty good possibility because we have seen Volk hurt. He's going to be very disadvantaged in the size. Now, he did fight Max, who's about the exact same height as Yair, but they're very different, right? Max, you're only really expecting punches, right? Yair, he's going to mix in kicks too. It's a very different opponent, very different stylistic matchup. And I think that in terms of a finish, Yair is much more dangerous than Max Holloway is. Max is one of my favorite fighters. I think he's a much better striker than Yair. Maybe not a much better. I think he's man, honestly, no, he's not a much better striker than Yair. He's got better output, and they're about even, I'd say, in the striking. But look, Yair, in my opinion, is just more dangerous. So what I am going to do, I'm going to play Yair by knockout. The lines are around plus 550, something like that. There is a plus 650 sitting on Bet Rivers, and I'm probably going to bet that the second I get off of the stream. I think that it's worth a 0.2 unit shot. You're betting 0.2 units to win back like 1.3 if my math is good, which it usually isn't. But, you know, it's a small stake. And then if I'm right about the fact that Volkanovski is just leagues better and uses his wrestling, then I lose the 0.2 units. But if I'm also right about that knockout that I think is entirely possible, then I cash. And I just think it's worth the shot. I really do. Kind of gives me vibes of Usman, Leon Edwards too, where Usman was winning every second, and then Yair found that knockout. I mean, Yair, Edwards found that knockout. Now, look, I bet the knockout there on Edwards, and the reason I did was because I noticed something in Usman. I noticed the way he's ducking his head, and it turned out that I was right. It took 5 rounds, almost an entire 5 rounds to show that, and I was almost very wrong. But look, I was right about my read. I think that I have less of a read here with Volk. I don't think that he makes those kind of mistakes. I don't see him ducking his head, but he is hittable. He's not perfect. Max Holloway was beating him up on the feet in their second fight, and the size I think is also going to factor into this. So I do think that he could get caught, and I think he can get caught by something really heavy from Yair, and he can get knocked out. So I'm just going to do that plus 650, going to play that knockout for 0.2 units, and then leave it alone. I've considered everything. I've considered the totals. The fight doesn't go because I think that Volk can pick up a finish late, and that's the same reason why I didn't play Volk by decision, because would I be shocked if in round 4 or 5 Yair was donezo and Volk just put it on him, kind of like he did against the Korean Zombie, no, I wouldn't be. But I just none of those lines, not the decision, not the late finishes, not the fight doesn't go. None of them really speak to me. None of them really are priced in a way where I'd want to play it. The only thing that I think is mispriced is that plus 650 knockout. I think the other books have it a little bit more correct. Plus 500, maybe a little bit lower, would have been a bit more accurate, because I do think this happens at a decent clip. But plus 650, in my opinion, is very wrong. So I am going to take a shot on that for 0.2 units. So that's it, guys. The pick is going to be Volk, but the bet is going to be a knockout for Yair, because I think it's a possibility. I know a lot of people think just pick winners. Why are you picking one person, betting the other side? Look, most of those people who say that aren't profitable long term. Most of them end up losing their entire bankroll. And I'd love for you to point out somebody with a long-term record over 2 years who's been profitable doing just that. You're not going to find them. That's why I'm not confident to say that. You just won't. I've tried to look. It doesn't exist. The people who are profitable long-term understand the math behind it, and they understand that the way to really make money is to find where the books are wrong, not to just bet on which side you wins. Of course you want to do that. Duh. You don't want to bet on a guy you think is going to lose no matter what. But you want to be able to understand, what's the likelihood? What do I think this line should have been at? I think it's very important to think about those things. Maybe you disagree, and you have every right to disagree. But that's how I think. That's how I bet. And that's how I've been able to keep a profit over 3 years now. So I'll run through all of the picks one more time, and then we'll hop on out of here. And I'll give you guys my bets too. So Kamuela, Kirk, Jesus Aguilar, Cameron Saaiman, Vitor Petrino, Tatsuro Taira, Jimmy Crute, Yazmin Jauregui, Jack Della, Nico Price, Bo Nickel, Jalen Turner, Bobby Knuckles, Pantoja, and Volk. Those are picks, not plays. Now my plays, I've got Pantoja plus 140 for 1 unit. I've got Denise Gomes at plus 375 for a half unit. I've got 3 units on Aguilar at minus 140. I've got Kirk at plus 135 for 1 unit. Then I've got the under 2.5 on the Aguilar Ross fight, minus 150 for 1 unit. I've got the under 2.5 on that Crute Menifield fight that was supposed to be a parlay. It's now just 1 unit on minus 240. I've got that parlay with Whitaker Turner, minus 132 for 1 unit. Then I've got Pantoja by sub, plus 500. Forgot to mention that during my breakdown. I put 0.2 units on that as well. I mean, the ground game of the dude is so legit, dude. And then Saaiman by knockout, plus 100 for a half unit. And the only thing I expect to add is the Yair knockout. I don't think I'm going to be adding much else to my slate. There's just not much to do here with these prices, with these lines. It's just very difficult to find value. So those are my picks. Thank you guys all for tuning in. And if you're watching this early on Wednesday today, make sure to tune in at 10:30 tonight for the panel. Going to be a really good time. It's me, Patrick from Addicted to Combat. He's my co-host for that show. And we're being joined by my buddy, MMA Propaholic. You guys have seen him on my channel. And I do a weekly prop show with him on Thursdays. Make sure to check that out on Thursday at 6 p.m. we're doing on Twitter Spaces. We're being joined by Lucrative MMA as well, and Timothy Troiano. All 3 guys really sharp, really smart. So I'm excited to break down the fights with them and Patrick tonight. And yeah, thank you guys all for tuning in. Good luck on any bets you might have. And I will have my YouTube shorts out probably tonight. So thank you guys again, and good luck.